there, everybody. Hello and welcome in. It's time for the Kansas edition of Three Guys Before the Game. Thanks so much for being with us. The Senator is in. Hiya, Senator.
Hello, Tony.
And look else. Oh, look who else. Oh, he's back. The Dean.
Was out contract negotiations.
Yes, Hoppy Kercheval returns.
Out for academic reasons in the last show.
One game suspension.
Well, we're handling this internally. We're not.
Yeah, so he's been running the steps here at the Pikewood Creative Building up and down. If you've seen him, that's what he's been doing. Welcome in, everybody. Here we go, West Virginia. Homecoming. Yeah, homecoming, I don't think, in my opinion, has gotten any buzz at all this year. This is like, it's been like a stealth homecoming.
Two things. One is you're not in school anymore, so you wouldn't hear about homecoming. You're busy doing other things. Number two is one of the first homecomings was in 1911 with Kansas.
Really?
Yes. Kansas and somebody. I was reading about that. Kansas was involved in one of the first official homecoming football games.
So like West Virginia invented Mother's Day, and Kansas is somewhat related to homecoming.
They are. Something like that.
No, so Kansas has been scheduled on homecoming games all the way back to 1911.
Oh, jeez.
I didn't know that started that far back.
It used to be, and they had a thing with Missouri, for years and years and years.
Great rivalry. Absolutely.
And the origins might be back in there a little bit. It's a little bit fuzzy, but they are tied to some of the original homecomings in college football.
It's very interesting. I must note, as we get ready to start this breakdown of West Virginia.
I had a long time
a week
last
off
night
to come up with his homecoming stat from 1911. That's a good one.
Well, listening to him before we started rolling here, I don't think he's ever been more prepared for a show.
I might not talk. I might be done. I'm just going to turn it over to him.
So what happened to you? You just went into this stuff and you just went crazy. You just dove in, huh?
Well, what happened is, I don't see the game like you guys do, so I have to rely on stats. So I get obsessed, and now you can get really good stats.
Yeah.
So last night, my wife is out of town, so I just
boy.
sat there, and I got my laptop, and my cat, the TV, and I just did stats hard for a while.
Not only stats, you told us before the show you were watching Pooka Williams' commitment video.
I admit
is
to
that true?
That is true. I watched his commit. Well, and I'll tell you why. There's a story there. Pooka Williams. I'm jumping ahead. You go ahead and run the show.
No,
we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
I'll just throw it out there right now. West Virginia will face the number one rusher in the Big 12 Conference. He's a true freshman, which is amazing, by the name of Pooka Williams. His given name is Anthony. He goes by Pooka, and he's become the story for this Kansas team. He did not play in their opening double overtime loss to Nicholls State. Had he, well, you can almost mark it down that they come in here 3-2 on the season rather than 2-3. Now, wouldn't that be something to say? So anyway, is it fair to say that you've never had more prep on one player than Pooka?
Well, I started looking at Kansas, and I started looking at Pooka Williams, and I thought, what's the first thing that occurs to you?
Why do they call him Pooka?
No.
Why did he go to Kansas?
Yes.
Over LSU, Mississippi State, Nebraska, TCU, and others?
Exactly.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes. And
all due respect, of course.
All due respect. And obviously the guy's very good. He reminds you a little bit of Tavon Austin. And if he's 5'10", I'm 6'11". He's about 5'8", and about 170 pounds. But he is a legend in Louisiana high school football. His senior year at Hahnville, he rushed for over 3,000 yards his senior year. In postseason, he had 300-plus yard games. He was a phenom. Now, how did he go to Kansas? Tony Hall is the running backs coach at Kansas, and he is from Louisiana. So we got on him and started recruiting him, and possibly there was a connection here because the coach was from Louisiana. And I actually did watch his commitment video, and he mentioned Coach Hall and the atmosphere at Kansas. So he's a Kansas.
Amazing.
And he's pretty good.
And he's been as good as advertised. I sent out a tweet earlier this week from a high school play. Did I just show you that high school play? Mm-hmm. Where he kicks a guy. Did you see him when he kicked the guy?
No.
So he runs to his left. And then
then runs back the other way?
Run back to the right. But then the guy comes up to try to tackle him. He literally jumps straight high into the air and put his leg straight down into the guy's chest. It wasn't even like a hurdle. Like, some guys try to hurdle guys. That's the big thing now. Instead, he just planted his foot square in the middle of his chest and knocked him down.
You know what he's got, guys? He's fast. Okay, he's a 4.3. They say he's a 4.3. But if he gets into and this is what you do have to worry about, if he gets into the secondary and there's a guy in the secondary stand there and remember what Tavon used to do? Yeah. And the guy would still be standing there? He can do that. He can do that. Brad's not worried. I'm obsessed by Pooka Williams. Brad's just like, forget about it.
You've done great research on Pooka. I'm not worried because I think it helps West Virginia that he's in. Anything to get Khalil Herbert out of the lineup, who holds the rushing record in a single game against West Virginia last year, almost 300 yards. He's still on that roster. So give me Pooka as long as you don't have to deal with Khalil Herbert. I'm good with
Together,
Pooka.
they could have 500 yards rushing against West Virginia.
In fairness, I believe you're taking that out of context. Yes, it's true that Khalil Herbert does hold the single-game rushing record for an opponent against West Virginia. He ran for nearly 300.
291 he put up.
Yeah,
last year just
almost
last
300.
year.
So how did that happen? So you kind of start to peel the leaves back and go, because we play a lot of games, so you got what happened? Why did that happen? Well, Tony Gibson certainly remembers it. And what happened a year ago, one of the reasons why, was that, number one, at that point, West Virginia's defense was really injured and was missing several key players, including David Long. And he'll make a tackle or two during the course of a game. And then Kansas did something they had never shown before, and they started running power. And West Virginia wasn't ready for it. West Virginia certainly wasn't manned ready for it. And you're right. Khalil Herbert put 291 yards on West Virginia, and now he can't even get onto the field because of Pooka power.
I want to give you one other, and I'll let it go. I want to give you one other Pooka stat.
More than one.
Oh, well, I can give you another one. Is that Pooka Williams, he couldn't play the first game because of academic eligibility issues, right? Okay, so he's played in 4 games. He's rushed for 474 yards in the first 4 games. That eclipses the freshman record through the first 4 games held by, collectively,
Would it be Gale Sayers?
1961, exactly.
He's got more yards than Gale Sayers did. And Gale was a sophomore because you couldn't play back then as a freshman.
Gale Sayers had 401 yards through 4 games.
Yeah. So what do you think, man? Is it the story?
I think that Pooka Williams, as they say, is the attraction. I mean, I think you'd be excited to play against a guy like this, and I would imagine that all this week, if you're trying to get Brad, the team, jacked up to play lowly Kansas, you say, look, this guy's run over top. What are you going to do about this guy? On the defensive side and on the offensive side, you're going to say, when are you going to run the football?
Well, you mentioned his speed, so chances are good that he's going to pop 1 or 2 when he slithers through there. I think the thing to watch in this is Kansas's offensive line really got pushed around by Baylor and Oklahoma State. So I think, once again, we're back to West Virginia's defensive line. One, how much pressure can they put on the 3-headed monster Kansas is going to roll out at quarterback and get to him, whoever him may be, and cause some disruption. But mostly, can they dominate that line and kind of hold Williams and the running backs in check? And then if he breaks 1 or 2 long, because he's probably going to, then okay. So that's the defensive side. And then the offensive side, I just don't see any way Kansas is going to be able to contain this West Virginia offense. Guys, they've got some flaws.
You've been watching tape.
I've been watching tape. Kansas has some flaws.
You find any one in particular person you could pick on?
Well, they've got a couple defensive ends that get extremely aggressive and crash down.
Yeah.
There is a lot of room on the outside. Now, I know you don't want to pull the Will Greer, stick it in and pull it in, run around the outside. Can Jack Allison run? Can Trey Lowe run? Can you go Wildcat stick it in the chest and pull around the outside there? Because it is there.
Will did have 2 rushing touchdowns against these guys last year.
I know, but I don't think you want him running.
Don't run Will Greer.
Don't do that. Saying he threw for 2.
But it is there.
Last time I saw him,
it is there.
We talk oftentimes about how important first down is for West Virginia's defense. You got to, make the team play from behind the chains. How about this stat? Stop Kansas on first down. Kansas running backs have averaged 8.5 yards before contact per carry on first and 6+ yards to go this season.
Well, and to go back to Pooka Williams, I think because he's broken a lot of long runs. He's had runs of 40, 50, 60. And so that affects that average there, I think.
Pooka power. However, there are some statistics, and I'll throw you some numbers here, that will make this interesting. Here's one for you. West Virginia has only allowed 31 rushing yards in the first quarter this season. Think about that. You had -17 in the Tennessee game. You had one that was 0. So anyways, there's 31. So West Virginia's stopping the run well in the first quarter. All week long they've been hearing from Tony Gibson and Hoppy about Pooka Williams. They will be focused and ready to stop Pooka Williams.
Don't you just put 11 in the box? If you're Tony Gibson, Don't you just say, all right, we're going to limit the run here, and if one of your quarterbacks can go beat us,
which they can't, because they got three guys, and they only average 175 yards passing a game, so they're not going to. None of those three is going to come out and throw for 375 and 3 touchdowns. Okay,
I think this is more about. You did a fine job setting up Kansas there. I think this game is just simply about West Virginia. We'll watch Pooka. I think this is, can West Virginia bounce back and give you 4 quarters? Can they give you 3.5 quarters? If you come out with effort in this game, this thing isn't even close.
Well,
the series hasn't been close. 46-19 is the average score in this series. I know Kansas picked off West Virginia in 2013. That was a historically bad West Virginia team. This series has not even been close. To me, this is another one-sided opportunity.
But you're looking at, remember last week we talked about it and we said West Virginia has to start fast against Texas Tech, and they did. And then, of course, the second half has been well documented. So I think if you're West Virginia, you don't want a third quarter of, you don't want a fifth quarter of the third and fourth of last week, right?
Well,
you want to come out and you want to get 4 consistent quarters out of this team, and you want to be able to run the football. Right? At some point, establish the run, or you don't care. You still don't care about the run as long as you can pass for 500 yards.
I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas makes West Virginia run it. So flip the side over. Why wouldn't they do what they tried to do to Oklahoma State, where it's just stay back and give West Virginia the run, and not come out and get embarrassed early by Will Grier and those receivers? Why wouldn't you do that? I asked that question last week. Why wouldn't you do that?
Statistic to validate the point. How about this one? Kansas has allowed 513 rushing yards in the first half this season. That's the 4th most among Power 5 teams. So there you go. Is this the day where Letty Brown, Kennedy McCoy, Martell Pettaway, is Alex Sinkfield healthy enough? Does West Virginia on the ground go Youngstown State on these guys and just say, fine, you're going to give us the box to run? Here we come.
Here's another thing that's a little bit deceiving about Kansas, and we've been kind of joking that Kansas gone on a roll.
I have not been joking. You two have just, I think, gone too far. Very unprofessional.
They won 2 games in a row. They beat Central Michigan, then they beat Oklahoma. No, they beat
Central Michigan and
Rutgers.
Rutgers. Okay. Wow. Okay. But what's deceiving about that is each of those 2 teams they beat had 6 turnovers in those games, which is why they're plus 2.5 in turnover margin. And they have had 8 interceptions, but my goodness, that also affects the stats. I mean, would they have won those games if those teams had turned the ball over once instead of 6 times? They might be, I don't know, maybe they had 1 win. I don't know. Are they? I just don't. I don't know if they're any. I don't know if they're any better at any position except for Pooka Williams.
I think you're only trying to see if West Virginia can bounce back from that effort.
They won last week.
Right. How'd they play in the second half?
Right. So that's the whole thing.
So if they don't get a defensive touchdown, they might lose the game.
So I think you just come out and you lay wood early if you're West Virginia. That's the goal. Come right back and say, all right, boys, you got some stuff to work on here. Go show us right now. And you roll. That's what you do.
I think it's 2 pieces to that, though. I think it's that. That's half the answer. Then if you go out there and ding-dong around in the second half again, then I think it becomes a trend. I think you got to go out there and you've got to be productive in both halves in order to come away from this game and go, okay.
I agree, because if you have the same kind of second half, it's going to be here we go again. There are going to be questions. You start to question yourself a little bit. You got to do 50. You got to do 50 plus in this game.
Oh! He just said half. Senator, he just said half a hundy.
I mean, I don't know that I'd argue with him on that.
What'd you say the average score was?
46-19.
Yeah.
I mean, so to put 50 up there is that's not out of the realm.
You know what's interesting, though? So what's it, 49-16 is the average?
46-19.
So that's right where the line is.
Where do you think the lines come from?
Right? That's right at the line. Yeah. All right, so a couple of
you did 35 against Texas Tech in the first quarter. You're going to tell me you can't get 50 against Kansas?
Yeah. What do you think Pooka does? End of the day, his final stats are printed. Here's the stat. What's his numbers?
$1.25.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think that's a decent number. Because he's busted one in every game. I mean, I think that's the thing. You can hold him in check and do a great job on him, and he slithers through one and busts off a 58-yard. Because when he gets in the open field, Hoppy mentioned his speed. I mean, he'll pop a couple long ones, I would think.
This may
and
surprise
the defense
you.
could do a great job on him, and he could still bust a couple on you.
This may surprise you. I actually have a stat on that. He has 4 rushes of 41 yards or more, and 3 of those went for touchdowns. So he'll break one. Okay? He'll break one.
But can West Virginia break him first? If he's the focus point of the entire week of preparation, they beat him down into submission.
I think this defensive line can have a day for West Virginia. I think Kenny Bigelow in particular can be really disruptive in this one. I mean, you saw him against Texas Tech living in the backfield early. I think this is another game where you're Kenny Bigelow. You are just busting that center right up the middle and make Pooka start dancing. Then you come and get him.
I also think this is going to be a big day for David Long. Didn't play against them last year. Had 15 tackles officially this past week, but was bummed because he missed 6. He missed 6, and he missed that 4th down run against Duffy, which allowed Texas Tech to keep the game alive. I think he goes out there and and this is crazy to say. I was going to say, I think he'll be especially good. Well, I mean, he's always especially good. I think he got a little edge and a little attitude.
So what's the over-under?
You think is this a 20 tackle day?
Nobody gets 20 tackles anymore.
That's rare.
Dude, he had 15 last week against a team that throws it. Right? Had 15 against a team that throws it and missed 6.
15 is a good over-under. I wouldn't go 20.
I'm not going to go 20.
18 over-under. He had 15 last week. That's easy.
18 over-under?
I think that over-under is a little high.
He might get rested.
I'd say a good betting over-under on his total tackles be 16.
Well, that's no different than last week. You think he's going to have a great day more than he would normally do. He just had 15.
Well, let me ask you this. How many guys you know have 31 tackles in 2 games?
Well, you're the one saying he's going to have a special day. 15 was an ordinary day. He did it last week.
He shouldn't be playing. If he had to play, he had to play in the 4th quarter last week. He shouldn't be playing in the 4th quarter this week. He should be sitting on the bench.
Okay, well, then he'll just have another really good game. Caridi's over here saying he's going to have an over-the-top game. I'm just trying to identify what over-the-top means to him.
I was just trying to get a number that I could win on the bet.
I know, but your mouth already started to cash the check. Give me
Here's
a 20.
bet. You want to bet? Here's a bet. Kansas has not won a Big 12 road game. They have not won a conference road game since October 4th, 2008. October 4th, 2008, which was against
10 years ago today.
Oh, is it?
It's October 4th today, yeah.
Iowa State.
10 years ago today. All right. So, with all of that being said.
Is this the last time you see David Beatty in Morgantown?
Oh, you were in athletics administration for 2 decades.
It's trending in that direction. I mean, listen, they haven't had a lot of success. They've got a new athletic director. I mean, I don't think that's breaking news to say that it's trending in that direction.
Yeah, but he looked pretty good when he won 2 in a row. He could have been 3-2, but let's take a look at the reality of it. Underdog against West Virginia. Next week, underdog at Texas Tech. Underdog against TCU. Iowa State underdog at K-State. At Oklahoma, Texas. Yeah.
I mean, they've got to beat K-State. You look at them against Baylor. That was a chance for them to make some hay. It's 26-7 against Baylor. Baylor was doing whatever it wanted. I mean, this team still has a long way to go. Kansas does.
11 years ago, they were 12-1. Won the Orange Bowl.
Once it goes the other direction on you, it is hard to right the ship.
Man,
it's
hard.
Football.
Did they make maybe the 2 worst coaching hires of the last decade?
The Charlie Weiss one, clearly. The Turner Gill one, though, is baffling.
He was hot in Buffalo.
He was
at Buffalo. He was red hot.
And won games and has turned around and gone to Liberty and won games. He has won everywhere he's been but at KU. So that turned out to be a terrible hire
but
in
not
hindsight.
at the time.
But not at the time. That's a surprising one.
I mean, the Weiss hire was epic.
Yeah, you can question that all day long. The Turner Gill one's a weird one, man.
Someone asked me, can they eventually win there? Yeah, why not? Yeah, they can. Here's the deal. Here's the difficulty of it. They have such a basketball tradition that football is an afterthought and always will be an afterthought. Unfortunately, that's just the way that it is.
They're going to build a new stadium, aren't they?
Hoppy, if you saw their stadium right now, their stadium looks like East-West Stadium.
They don't have a track around it, do they?
They took the track out like 3-4 years ago. But they do have like over $100 million in expansion plans and renovation.
Right,
and
right.
They're
that's
making
what you have to do. I mean,
they're making that commitment. So can they? Why? Yeah, sure they can. If K-State can, then they can. And if Kansas State changes, if Bill Snyder leaves, then why can't they fill that void all of a sudden and do that, go that route, and get those JCs that Kansas State has been kind of accumulating? And if you get if you get it, I think you can. I really do think you can. You don't have to be 10 years away from conference road wins. That's wrong.
Well, it is hard though. I mean, it's a lot easier on the way down than it is on the way up. I mean,
it is, but It's mind-boggling they've been this down. You're exactly right. Iowa State's been down too. And look how relatively quickly they popped it back up and got bowl eligible and got to a point where they're losing again this year. But we're going to have a totally different conversation this time next week going into that game than we're having now.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's an example of a program that was really down that popped itself back up. Kansas just simply cannot get off the mat. They can't get off the mat.
Under Mangino, that the year they went to the Orange Bowl and won, they were 12-1. The following year, they were like 8-5 and went to a bowl game and won. And after that, I mean, they completely. It wasn't a steady decline. I mean, the thing went like this. It went right down and has stayed there.
Well, once you get your numbers down and you're dealing with that.
I mean Beatty one year didn't win a game.
You make the wrong hire, and I've always said this. You make the wrong hire, you are staring down the line of a decade of bad.
Well,
look at Syracuse. They get rid of Paul Pasqualoni, and then they went with Greg Robinson. Wrong, right? And then Marone basically one and done them, and then that thing. Just until this year, they finally got serviceable again. And that's been well over 10 years. So you make the wrong hire, you can be
Look
cooked.
at Nebraska.
Absolutely. Saw a stat today about Nebraska. Frank Solich got fired after a 3-loss season. Okay? Got fired after every year since, which has been 14 years, I believe it was 14 years, they've had more than 3 losses. They've had 4 or more losses for 14 straight years, and they got rid of Frank Solich for a 3-loss season.
And that's Nebraska.
That's
Pelini got fired for winning 9 games.
Yeah, you just took the words out of my mouth. That's Nebraska. So you can see why once Kansas got down and was pinned, they just can't stand back up. They just can't stand back up. They're not, and I'm telling you guys, they haven't looked close yet. I know they got those 2 wins. But they have not looked good this year.
They got 2 wins against bad teams.
Why are you holding back? Because you came in here before we started recording. You said, guys, I'm telling you what. What did you say?
I don't even remember what I said.
You said they're terrible.
Yeah,
I said, but you're all, the other thing is you're not in a place, I mean, geographically, I know you recruit from all over now, and they got this Pooka from Louisiana, but geographically, you're not, it's harder there, okay? I mean, if you were in Florida, you could say, we're going to drive a bus around and pick up some guys.
Dude. If you can win here, I mean, if you can win here, if you can win in West Virginia, you trying to tell me the state of Kansas you can't win?
Well, they've
absolutely.
And go a couple steps further. You're not talking about winning national championships. Just win 4, 5, 6. Try and get bowl eligible. They're light years away from that right now. And basketball's elite. It's not like basketball's kind of good. It's one of the elite programs over the last. Pick your number of years. However many years you want to name, Kansas is in that mix. So you've got some name recognition. You're able to attract athletes to that campus in basketball. You can't.
It's easier. It's a lot easier in basketball.
Well, you need fewer people. I realize, but that's a huge gap between your programs. It's hard to be elite in both sports. That's why West Virginia probably doesn't get enough credit for what they've done. But the gap between Kansas basketball and where Kansas football is by far the largest in the country, and it ain't even close.
Yep, I agree.
If you went 5-on-5, would Kansas basketball beat Kansas football?
In football?
Yeah, in football.
You're terrible.
West Virginia better not lose, or we're going to have to destroy this tape.
If West Virginia,
we're going to have to delete all copies of this.
It would
if
have
West Virginia
to be.
chucks
I mean,
this
the
up.
things that would have to happen for West Virginia to lose, you'd have to make a list. They'd have to turn the ball over 7 times. Will Greer would have to get hurt. Pooka Williams would have to run for 225. I mean, start making a list of absurdities.
Crazier things have happened. Got to be careful. It's the
This
most
is
important game on the schedule because it's the next game.
This October's a dominate month for West Virginia.
Forget it.
West Virginia's got to make some hay here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Dominate in October.
Forget about it. If you're us, forget about it. If you're the coaches, you're going, now listen, boys, you better be ready. You better, because they'll kick your – but for us, it's
I say West Virginia plays. I think they've been getting their backside worn out all week long by the Mountaineer coaches. I think they play bouncy.
I don't know, man. You play a bad team.
You
play a bad team, and bad things start to happen. Weird stuff starts to happen.
They wore their backside out this week because it got so close against Texas Tech, and all they've been preaching all week was you better play 4 quarters and you better bust it. And I guarantee you, regardless of what the score is at halftime, regardless of what it is, I guarantee you they're going to play really well third quarter.
All right.
I really do. I think they'll come out and play. I think this is a good enough team to say play, and they'll play. I think it's got a lot in it.
If you have that, that is one of the elements that you need if you're going to be an elite team.
Yeah.
Agree. That's what I'm talking, and we'll talk about this in the coming 2 weeks as well, but that's what I want to see from West Virginia. Much like we talked about against Youngstown State or these others, go out, dominate this game, put it away, you win, you move on to next week.
And this has been a team to this point which has lived up to what it needs to do each and every
That was
week.
that was a great win last week. I mean, I know everybody's flipped out about the second half, but you went on the road against a ranked opponent and covered the spread. That's what else do you want?
Yeah,
you want to play better in the second half, but okay, check that box.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. 4-0 against the spread so far, and some of those numbers have been really big.
Yep.
So yeah, I think thus far West Virginia has done exactly what it needs to do. Big picture in each game.
And Texas Tech, I thought that was good for West Virginia because Texas Tech was a sexy pick, and West Virginia defied a lot of those prognosticators.
All four of the guys, on ESPN, except for Desmond Howard, right? All picked Texas Tech to win the game straight up.
That's
they were a real trendy pick.
Very trendy.
Yeah,
they weren't the only ones. A lot of Vegas pros were on that number too.
Yeah. Speaking of picks, you ready to do the picks
Sure.
around the Big 12 this
Sure.
week? What do you say we go into the pick mode? Hey. Yeah. All right.
Music?
Yeah. Music. Thought I'd switch it up a little bit. Do you have 2 tickets for the big games this week? Well, maybe you can see Eddie Money. All right, here we go. Texas and Oklahoma, folks. Texas and Oklahoma. The Red River rivalry, the Oklahoma line now 7.5, favoring the Kyler Murray-led Sooners. What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? Is Texas back?
Well, you'll hear that'll get loud if they beat Oklahoma.
Oh my gosh!
I would still. I'm not going to pick against Oklahoma in this one. No.
Do they cover?
As of now, I'd say yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we'll see. This will start to tell you. The Texas defense looks like what it's looked like the last few years. It's got guys, of course. The Texas defense isn't bad compared to who they've gone against so far. Are they for real? You find out this weekend. What can they do to Oklahoma?
Every now and then you got to roll the dice. Rivalry game. I'm going to go Texas.
Huh? Straight up?
Upset. Yes, straight up. Upset.
Wow. Is that because your son lives in Austin?
No, because it's just that every now and then you got to pick against. Every now and then you got to gamble.
And if you're ever going to start a movie trailer, right?
If you're ever going to pick against the favorite, it's in a rivalry game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, remember it.
I realize I'm alone here out on the fringe on that.
That's all right.
That's fine. I mean, go with it. Boy, that would lead to a
If Oklahoma pounds them, I'll forget you said Texas last. So that's a good.
It would kill me if Oklahoma pounds them. You just
it would help West Virginia. It would help West Virginia if Texas loses. Right? Give them an L. So when Oklahoma, if you can get Texas, then you took care of that business, and then it's you and Oklahoma.
See, isn't that an interesting debate? We don't have time to get into it now.
Too presumptuous.
But it's going to be. But
that's
the story's going to be if Texas wins, then it'll be like
then it's really wide open.
It's wide open,
it's West
and also
Virginia's to take at that point. Yeah. So which would it be better for? You're right to set up if you knew both were going to go undefeated, you'd say, well, of course you want Oklahoma there with you. Yeah. But if your goal is just to win the Big 12, maybe you need some help somewhere.
We're really jumping over our skis. Let's go back.
First, got to beat Kansas.
Iowa State, Oklahoma State in Stillwater. This one here, man. Iowa State's 1-3, 0-2 in the league. Oak State is 4-1 and 1-1 in conference play. The folks in Vegas have it as Oklahoma State is a 9.5. That sneaky 9.5 point favorite. What do you got?
In there. Oklahoma State came back and played better after that disappointing loss to Texas Tech, and they got better play out of their quarterback. And Iowa State is clearly not as good as people thought they were going to be. I think Oklahoma State. Do they cover? I don't know if they cover, but certainly straight up. Maybe they cover.
Doesn't that feel like I mean, it's on the road. Iowa State probably can't get the win, but you know me, I have not been high on Oklahoma State.
You're a Taylor Cornelius hater.
I would take Iowa State there against the number. I don't know that I'm bold enough to pull an outright upset, but it also wouldn't shock me there. Iowa State's due, man. I know they're playing with some backup guys. Montgomery's banged up. If you tell me Montgomery's back and he's 100% healthy, I feel better about that. If he's dinged, that's probably Oklahoma State, which is probably reflective of the number.
Overthinking.
That's what I do, Kercheval. Give me Iowa State against the number, though, on that, just to be different.
I'm just saying this. I'm going to be worried about a 1-4 Iowa State team next week. They worry the heck out of me. Anyway, lastly, this is fun. Doesn't have any implication as far as the championship race goes, but at Kansas State now at 2-3, 0-2 in the loop against Baylor, 3-2 and 1-1 in Waco. Here's another chance for Matt Rule to show you where he is.
What's the line?
Line is Baylor 4.5.
I would go Baylor just because that we've seen Kansas State. I know they covered last week. They got the Bill Snyder. The Snyder Cats got the cover at home against Texas which we were watching closely. But, boy, we saw that Kansas State team just not very good. It's at Baylor, and maybe Rule is going to get it going here at some point. That would be an important win for them if they got that.
Baylor's got to win that game and cover. If they're on any sort of,
they'll just take the win.
Well, that's true. They probably can't get greedy at this point. If they're on any sort of path to get better, you have got to beat Kansas State. This year in the league, you beat Kansas and you beat Kansas State if you're Baylor.
Yeah,
have to.
All right. So just based upon your comments over the last several minutes, I would tend your lean is toward West Virginia in the Kansas game, Hoppy.
Yes, my lean would be toward West Virginia.
And you say Pooka gets a 1 1/4.
Say he gets a $1.25.
And Senator, I know where you're at on this thing, and you also think that Pooka goes 1 1/4.
I think that's a fairly good number.
I'd like to take the under on that.
Okay,
I'll go under on that. And the David Long tackle, I'm going to go.
You said it at 20. You already did.
I have to live off the 20. I'll take the under on 20. Hey, we're back again Monday. Thanks for being with us. 3 guys before the game. Take care.